Hi, this is Sean from theintelligenthypnotist.com, and today I'd like to teach you an instant way of doing a deep trance identification. And it's really fun, light-hearted, but really interesting and quite powerful. And this way of doing a deep trance identification is the process of being able to step into somebody else's skin and really understand how they live their lives. So you might want to do a deep trance identification with Steve Jobs or Milton Erickson, or someone who really embodies the skill that you want to absorb. And this is a really quick and easy way of doing it. And what you need to use this method is simply a sample of how that person speaks and thinks, which means that you need to have something which they've written, or a video or audio of them speaking, and a reasonable sample of something. Now, the great thing about this is you can use this with someone who's not a real person, someone from fiction, as long as there is dialogue that you have of them talking in a book or a movie or whatever. So you could do this with Neo from the Matrix, should you so wish. And here's the method. It's based upon word thoughts, so what we would call auditory digital in terms of NLP, i.e. actual words and tonality, or words. And what you're going to do is to take your sample of this person talking or thinking or something they've written and begin to read through or listen or watch. And what you're listening for is the words that the person uses. And when I say words, I don't mean words like it, an, this, that, here, there. I'm not talking about names of real people they use or objects they might be interacting with. I'm talking about more hot words, words that they've chosen. So these might be words like value words such as freedom or fairness, or whatever words they use when they're describing something. And if possible, if you've got video or audio, listen for the tonality of those words, and you'll know they're really important if they stress them. So if they say, what's really important to me is freedom, so they stress that word, you'll know it's important. And as you go through the material and you begin to note the words which they're saying, words of that type, enormous words, notice how many times they use them. And what you're looking for again is the words which they use a lot, because these words are important to them. So what words do they use a lot, which are really choice words, and if possible words which they put particular emphasis on. And you want a list of maybe 10 or 20 of these words. And once you've got that list, take a look at the contexts in which they use those words. So for example, do they use them in a very expansive context? Or is it a very specific context, a specific time and place and situation? Do they apply them to themselves, or do they apply them to other people? Do they apply them to things in the past or things in the future? What's the context, the contextual markers in which they use those words? Once you've got that list of words, I'm going to invite you to begin to use them in conversation, in your own thoughts and your own conversations. Perhaps take a day and use that list of words in those types of contexts. And just notice what you notice. And what you may find is you find yourself actually stepping into that person's experience in a really intense way. It's a really interesting experience to try. So I'm going to give you one example of one word used by one person. And that word is honestly. Okay, this is a very powerful word for the unconscious mind. Because as far as the unconscious mind is concerned, if you say honestly, it means completely. It means without holding back, without pretense. And this is a word that was, and still is as far as I know, favored by Dr. Richard Bandler, the co-founder of NLP. He uses this word a lot with his clients. So the context is he's speaking to another person, inviting them to have an experience, and he'll say, I want you to honestly step into the memory of this experience, something like that. Okay, so he's inviting them to completely step into that experience. So if you were to take a day and when you spoke to other people and you were talking about their experience, if you were to say, what's your honest experience of this? What's your honest thoughts about this? And notice what that would be like for you. Now, bear in mind, he's not applying that word to himself. He's not saying, in my honest opinion, he's not saying that. That's not the context. He's using it in the present tense, inviting someone else to have an experience or share an experience, a feeling, a thought right now. And he's using it for the other person, inviting the other person to have that experience, to honestly step into that experience. So if you were to use that word one day this week, maybe with clients if you're in practice, I want you to honestly step into the experience of X right now. And notice what that would be like. And doing just that one word, you might have some sense of stepping into the experience of Richard Bandler. Now, if you do that with 10 or 20 really powerful words which define a person's experience, which define a person's thought map, you can have a really, really powerful experience. If you want to take this further and you've got a document, let's say a Word document that someone has written, you can begin to use the indexing function. For example, in Microsoft, each time you find a word, you can index it, and that will give you a word count and a reference in terms of where the words are. You can also, there are certain pieces of software out there, I think some of them are free, where you can input some text and it will build a word cloud for you. So that's also a fun way of doing it. So give this a try with your favorite model and see what you get. And please let us know what your experience was. That's all we've got time for. We'll see you in the next video.